You ever look at something, anything really, and wonder what it actually costs to make it? Not what you paid for it, but what it costs to bring it into existence from nothing. Well, today, we are pulling back the curtain on how manufacturing businesses do just that. We're going to figure out the real cost of every single thing they create. So let's get into it.
For a regular store, a retailer, it's pretty simple, right? Their cost is just what they paid for the item. But for a manufacturer, it's a whole different ballgame. They don't buy finished products, they make them from scratch. So how on earth do they figure out the true cost of just one chair when so many different things go into it? That's the big puzzle we're going to solve together.
And solving this puzzle means we need to break it all down. First, we have to understand the different types of costs involved. Then, we'll follow a product on its journey through the factory. And finally, we'll put all those pieces together to find that one single, all-important number.
Okay, let's start with the absolute basics. Every single cost inside a factory can be sorted into one of two big buckets. And trust me, understanding this simple difference is the first major key to unlocking the whole thing. So, the first bucket is for what we call direct costs. These are the easy ones, the obvious ones. If you can literally point to a product and say, yep, that cost is part of that specific thing, then it's a direct cost. It's a direct ingredient in what you're making.
And these direct costs, they break down into three main categories. First, you've got your direct material. This is the physical stuff, the wood, the nails, the paint for our comfy chair. Then there's direct labor. That's the paycheck for the person who is physically putting that chair together. And finally, you have direct expenses, which can be something like a royalty you pay to the designer for every single chair you make.
And here's a key term for you. When you add up all of those direct costs, the materials, the labor, the expenses, you get your first really important subtotal. It's called the prime cost. Think of it as the core, rock-solid, undeniable cost of making the product itself. Okay, but what about the lights in the factory, the supervisor's salary? I mean, you can't really say how much electricity one single chair used, right? Well, that's where our second bucket comes in. Indirect costs, or what accountants love to call factory overheads. These are all the costs that are absolutely essential for the factory to even run, but you can't trace them back to just one item.
Yeah, we're talking about stuff like the rent for the building, the insurance, the salary of the person who cleans the floors at night. All of this is totally necessary to make the chairs, but these costs support the entire production line, not just one single chair.
Okay, so we've got our two buckets of costs, direct and indirect. Now let's see where they come into play by following our comfy chair on its journey, all the way from a pile of wood to a finished product that's ready for someone's living room. You see, every product inside a factory exists in one of three stages. First, you've got your raw materials. That's just the basic stuff, the ingredients, sitting in the storeroom waiting. Then, once someone starts working on it, it becomes work in progress. It's not just wood anymore, but it's not quite a chair yet either. And finally, you get the finished goods, the completed chair, all done, ready to be sold. Now listen up, because this is a super, super important point. It's a classic trip-up. The value of those completed, finished chairs. We don't actually use that number in the big calculation we're about to do. That number gets saved for later when we're trying to figure out our profit. So for now, we are laser focused on just two things, raw materials and that work in progress stuff. All right, the moment has come. We have our ingredients, our direct and indirect costs, and we know the stages our chair goes through. Now it's time to put it all together and build what's called a manufacturing account. This is the tool that's finally going to answer our big question. What did it cost us to make everything this year? First things first, we need to figure out how much raw material we actually used. It's pretty rare for a business to use the exact same amount of stuff it buys in a year, so how do we nail down the cost of just the wood and paint that actually went into the chairs we made this year? Well, we use this pretty straightforward formula. You take the value of the materials you had at the start of the year, you add in all the new stuff you bought, and then you subtract whatever was left over at the end. What's left in the middle? That's the cost of the materials that were actually consumed in production. So, let's plug in the numbers for our company, Comfy Chairs. They started the year with $45,000 in materials. During the year, they bought another $160,000 worth. And at the very end of the year, they counted what was left, and it was $53,750. So, you take the starting amount plus the purchases minus what's left, and that gives us the cost of materials they actually used, $151,250. Perfect. Step one is done, we've got our materials cost. Now let's get back to that first big subtotal we talked about, the prime cost. It's time to add in those other direct costs.
So, to get our prime cost, we take that $151,250 in materials we just figured out, and we add the other direct costs. For comfy chairs, that's $16,000 for the workers' wages and another $3,440 in royalties for the design. All in, that brings our prime cost to $170,690.
We are so close. We've added up all our direct costs, we've got our factory overheads ready to go, but there's one last really clever adjustment we need to make. We have to account for the value of those half-built chairs, the work in progress, at both the beginning and the end of the year.
And here it is, the whole shebang. We take our prime cost, we add in all those factory overheads like rent and insurance, then, and this is the clever bit, we add the value of the half-finished chairs we started the year with, and we subtract the value of the half-finished ones we ended the year with. And that finally gives us our magic number, the cost of production.
So what? We did all of that work just to get one number? What does it actually do? Why is this cost of production figure so critical? Well, this is where everything connects back to the bottom line. Making a profit. This is it, $216,810. After all those steps, this one number represents the total factory cost of all the goods that were fully completed by Comfy Chairs this year. This is the answer to our puzzle. It is the true cost of production we set out to find, and now we're going to see exactly where it fits.
Now take a look at this. This is the top part of a normal income statement, the part that calculates profit. See that big question mark? If this were a regular store, that line would say purchases. But a manufacturer doesn't buy finished goods, right? They make them. So, what goes there?
And that is the final beautiful piece of the puzzle. The cost of production figure that we so carefully calculated slots right into the income statement, perfectly taking the place of purchases. This is the crucial link that connects the factory floor directly to the financial reports, allowing the manufacturer to finally figure out their true cost of sales and ultimately their profit.
So the next time you see a price tag on a handmade table or a car, or even just your morning coffee, think about all of this. Remember the hidden layers of costs that go into it, from the raw materials to the supervisor's salary to the rent on the building itself. Knowing the true cost isn't just an accounting trick. It really does change how you see the value of everything around you.